Okay, so here we are in Josh's gym, Resilience Jiu Jitsu in Visalia, California. Josh, you're going to show some technique right now?
Yes, sir. We're going to go over the mount position, showing control from the mount.
Now, for people that don't know out there, Jiu Jitsu, it's basically a wrestling art. It's all on, pretty much on the ground, takes place on the ground. Can you explain to us what the mount position is and just maybe go ahead and show us?
Yeah, it'd be a whole lot easier showing you. Why don't we do that?
Let's do it.
We'll go over the basics of the mount, and then I'm going to have you guys go back into your groups and start working on it, okay? The mount position is obviously one of the best positions you can possibly be in, right? Top control. You don't want to fight to get to this position. You fought from passing the guard, half guard, side control to get to the mount. You don't want to give up the mount, right? Okay, the only advancement from the mount is to take the back. Okay, so we want to maintain control. We don't want the person on the bottom exploding and escaping out. Does that make sense? All right, so there's three basic ways to control the mount. Okay, there's variations of one. I'll kind of get into that, but we're going to start off in what we call the low mount here. Okay, so the low mount has different looks to it. What I don't want to do is bring my knees in close to the body. A lot of people squeeze the person on the bottom thinking that's going to help.
So, man, I'm really proud of you. You're a really good instructor, dude.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, I like the flow here, man. It's really chill.
Yeah.
This is the kind of squat I like to train at. I don't really compete too much. I'm a really chill, relaxed guy. So I'm always looking for something like this. People, they're not moving around too crazy. They're not going fast. But at times, if they need to, I'm sure they can.
Of course.
What do you think about self-defense in jiu-jitsu? Like, what is the most important part with jiu-jitsu when it comes to self-defense?
It's huge, right? Jiu-jitsu came from a self-defense background, or its origins are, rather. Now, my personal background, I work for Fresno Police Department. I don't know if you knew that. So I've been a police officer for about 20 years around there.
You still are a police officer?
Correct. Still am.
Awesome.
Yeah, still am. So I work for Fresno PD.
Have you ever had to wrap anyone up with some jiu-jitsu?
A little bit, right? A little bit. The rules are a little bit different, out on the street, when you have life.
Maybe a little wrist lock here and there?
Yeah, a little bit, but liability is a huge thing, right? So you can't go around and doing flying triangles and things like that on people on the street, but that's the good thing about jiu-jitsu. It teaches you control and how to control somebody, right? So if you're able to control somebody, the force that you use is limited, right? You're able to control somebody bigger, stronger, faster on the ground. You can control them, and that goes back to the self-defense aspect, So currently, I, again, work for Fresno PD. I work at our regional training center. So I'm full-time instructor right now. So I teach our res control defensive tactics, which is very, very similar to jiu-jitsu anyway. And I'm able to sprinkle in a little bit of jiu-jitsu because of my background. I think it's huge, right? It's very, very important for everybody, not only police officers, to learn. But again, with the self-defense aspect of it, it all goes back to control. Kind of like how I was talking about over here. You don't want to get in a dominant position like the mount in a self-defense situation and leave any room for escape. So you could take somebody that's a little bit smaller than your attacker or opponent and be able to maintain control just with physics, right? Whoever applies the best physics is going to win that fight. You stay on top, control till somebody comes to help you, or you're able to disengage and get away, right? So in self-defense aspects, I always press that. We're not going to teach anybody in a women's self-defense class. They're not going to come in for a 2-hour class and leave here ground fighters, right? But they're going to leave here with the self-confidence that if it does go to the ground, somebody tries to attack them, they can disengage and get back to their feet and get away, right? We're not trying to initiate a fight. We're trying to disengage and get away to get help or stay safe.
So do you teach your students, before they throw an arm bar or a triangle or a choke on somebody, to try to talk about it or try to talk their way out of it if they can?
Yeah, of course. That's the best way of self-defense, right? Just avoid it altogether. But when it comes to a point where you can't talk your way out of it, or it just comes to that point where it happens, right? We're not trying to throw on arm locks like that. I think arm lock in a self-defense situation is a little bit sketchy because you lose position. Unless you've been training for a long time, you can apply it very quickly, very well. I would prefer to see my guys in a self-defense situation get on top, stay on top, get on the back, stay on the back until the fight is over or somebody comes to help.
So what you mean by that, if they're in the mount position in a street situation, can you show that on me real quick? Can you break it down for me?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we'll say Tom here, if you don't mind turning, there we go, perfect. All right, so we'll say Tom's my attacker, all right, and I'm able to get on top here, okay? I want to stay on top. I want to take away the control, okay? To where I'm not going to worry about his strength. Obviously, Tom's a lot taller than I am. He has a lot more leverage, and he's able to push me away, okay? But once you learn the physics of it, the leverage of it, I can maintain control much, much better, okay? So being on top, I want to take away that space. I want to smother him. I want to stay on top. I want to limit any possibility of him striking me, pushing me away. So if I'm staying low on Tom here, okay, there's very little room for him to push me, for him to strike me here. Okay, so as he starts pushing me, creating space, I walk with him. As long as I'm able to keep my hands in front of him here, circling my hands, I can keep that good base. Ride with him from the low mount like I was showing the students earlier here. This way. I can effectively stay on top just by taking that space away from him. Here. He pushes, I just ride with him. He expands, I walk with him. Here. Turns his back. Take his back, maintain control.
All right, switch partners.
Any space I want to take away, make sure his limbs, his strength is taken out of the equation. As soon as you're on bottom, start shoving me. If I'm able to walk with my hands like that, it's pretty simple, right? Now we go to the opposite side, right? So if you're an attacker, you're able to get on top of me. Of course, number one thing is I don't want to freak out, right? I start going crazy, start making all kinds of movements here. He's going to start raining down punches. I leave myself open. Obviously, it's hard to stop punches from the bottom, right? I can block myself, but eventually one of these fists, one of these elbows is going to find its way through, okay? What I want to do is make sure he's not able to attack me. If I let him sit up like that, okay, he's off balance. Just like I was showing the students, you want to stay low, but if he's staying up like that, getting ready to rain down punches, I want to get him off balance. If he's worried about maintaining control on the ground, he's not going to be punching me. If his hands are on the ground, he can't punch me. Okay, so here, make sure his hands are occupied. Now I need to control him, right? If I don't control him, he's going to sit back up or back to square one. Here, I'm going to wrap him here, wrap an arm. Here, now he tries to sit up on me. Stay with him, control him. Now look, now I have the overhook on my right side, okay? He can't punch me. I can grab the material of his shirt, his gi, lock that elbow in. He can't pull that arm out. I'm not worried about this side. Here, okay? Now when I'm ready to escape, I need to take away a couple base points. One hand, one knee, this way. Okay, just like a table, if I take away two legs of a table, that table's gonna fall whichever way I influence it. In this case, I'm gonna influence it to my right, his left, because I took away those bases. If I try to push away to the other side, he has these base points on his right, my left. So from here, bridge, here, see that? Now he can stop. I need to maintain control. Continue to push. Here, now I'm out, all right? So if the person on top is trying to take away that space to stay on top, obviously from the bottom it's opposite. You want to create space so you can escape.
Awesome, man. Chris Ronquillo, we love you, brother. Chris Ronquillo, my very first cage fight up in Porterville, California at Eagle Mountain Casino. After my fight, I stepped out of the cage. Luckily, I was, God willing, I was fortunate enough to win that fight.
Yeah.
And when I walked out of the cage, he was right there and he was looking me in the eye, and he had a big old smile on his face, and I didn't know who this guy was. I just knew he was cage side. And man, he called me over to him and he's like, "Good job, man." And he goes, "Your nickname should be the Anaconda." And that's where I met Chris Ronquillo. But anyhow, Chris Ronquillo is the one who introduced Archie to me, and they had the idea for this podcast, MMA Fight Pass.
Nice.
So I met Archie through that, and Chris, he does it with us from time to time. And I came up with the idea. I told Archie, I said, let's do this inside the dojo, where we'll go around the schools and stuff.
Great idea.
So Chris Ronquillo, we love you, brother. We hope you get well, and we'll see you soon. We know you're going to be back out here, Chris.
So let me ask you a question. When was
Yes.
your first cage fight?
My first cage fight, I came back from Humboldt, from the Japanese Jiu Jitsu. Started doing all the training in my garage and stuff. We started training at Jibushi, and then I don't know what got into my head. You know what I mean? I never ever had been in a real fight in my life. I had gotten beat up by a kid one time, but as far as being in a real fight, I had never been in a real fight. But I had a lot of jiu-jitsu competition experience. I had gotten back from the world championships. Like, I was traveling around training with all these really good people, and man, I got the wild hair to do it. But Jibushi was mainly just a jiu-jitsu school, and I wanted to do MMA. So, have you ever heard of the box?
Yeah.
Okay, so the box was it was my garage in the back of my house, and it was a small group of select people that were training there. Luis Gonzalez would come over. Ron Holsey would come over, and some of my students that wanted to fight. And Ron and Luis really helped me out a lot. Love you guys. Love you, Ron Holsey. Love you, Luis Gonzalez, because without you guys, that fight probably would have went the other way. The guy I was fighting was real tough. And so I went up there in Porterville, California. I'm going to be releasing that fight here probably tomorrow, because my mom just found that fight in the archives.
Really?
Yep, so you'll see it. It was only 49 seconds long. I was able to triangle choke the guy. I put him to sleep. And me and him afterwards, we became really good friends. I'm always really respectful to my opponents. And I think everybody, if you compete, you got to be respectful, man, because this is a sport. And you know what? Both guys are getting inside the cage, and you're doing something that's very dangerous, man. And your families are out there, and your friends are out there. And yeah, so after the fight was over, I had never choked anyone out in my life. You know what I mean? And I was luckily I put the triangle choke on him. He went to sleep, and I was tripping out, man. You know what I mean? This dude was laying there flopping around.
See it, right?
It was very scary. So when he came out of it, man, I went over there. I'm like, hey, how you doing? And met him and stuff. But that was my first fight. And let me finish the story, because when I went home that night, this is when the WEC was in Lemoore. Now the WEC was a gateway to the UFC. Okay. The WEC was big. Nick Diaz fought out there. A bunch of UFC fighters fought out there. Too many to name. Shoney Carter, all kinds of OG cage fighters fought out there in Lemoore. So I get this call. I go home from my cage fight in Porterville. I get this phone call the next night from Scott Adams, who's the matchmaker for the WEC. And he goes, hey, I saw your fight. I was in the crowd. He goes, you want to fight in 2 weeks? He goes, you want to fight in 2 weeks? And I had came out of that fight unscathed. Thank God. You know what I mean? God willing, God was with me. I came out of that fight unscathed, and so I told him, I go, who is it? Who's it against? Because I knew I was going to these cage fights and watching, and I didn't want to get stuck in there with Cairo Parisian was out there. And Nick, like I said, Nick Diaz and all these really good guys, and they were in my weight
experience.
They were in my weight class, and I didn't want to get stuck with one of them. But he goes, you're going to fight one of the Native Americans out here, Tony Alaniz. So I took the fight exactly 2 weeks later from my first fight. And that fight, I went in there, and that fight is on YouTube. You can look it up, Tom Owens versus Tony Alaniz, and you guys can see the fight. But the first fight was 49 seconds even. That second fight, Trippy, it was 1 minute and 49 seconds.
Oh, no way.
And I was, once again, God willing, and I love you, Tony Alaniz, I was able to I put him in a triangle choke. Can I demonstrate it, I did to him?
Yeah, see it.
Okay. So me and Tony, we're going at it, and we end up on the ground, and this guy's on top. I got the guard, and this dude's on top of me throwing punches at my face, okay? And we're fighting, and he's trying to punch me in the face. And I used to watch Rodrigo Nogueira a lot, and what I would see Rodrigo Nogueira do is he always used double wrist control, okay? Because double wrist control is a good way to stop the guy from punching you for one, but it also sets up all kinds of submissions. So I get him in double wrist control, and I use a technique like this where I put the knee in the chest. When he pulls his arm out, I shoot up into a triangle. Okay, so I lock the triangle. Now he wasn't having nothing to do with that triangle. He had seen my fight 2 weeks before, and he's like, I'm not gonna get choked out. So he does what a lot of people on the street would do. He goes to sit up, and as he sits up, I switch off to an armbar, and probably maybe did a little damage to his arm, but he did tap out. Wow. And then after that, like after that fight, me and him, again, you have to show respect. I shook his hand, he shook my hand. We got to know each other really, really well.
Nice.
You know what I mean? We actually became friends. We're friends now.
That's awesome.
And I'm friends with the other guy too.
That's awesome.
And anybody out there that competes in jiu-jitsu or cage fighting, I recommend you do the same. Don't be one of these guys. I was watching UFC this weekend, and these guys are sticking their heads out and they're doing all this real cocky stuff. That's not what jiu-jitsu is about. Jiu-jitsu means the gentle art, okay? So that means having respect and everything else that goes along with it.
Yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, that's my cage fighting story.
I remember I started jiu-jitsu training in August 2013. So that's why I asked you, because I'm pretty sure your first fight or one of your fights is right around that time.
October 28th.
There you go. Right. So I started at Jibushi with Mike Sir. I remember walking in and jiu-jitsu class had just ended. I went in, tried to get some information, sat down, talked to Mike Sir. He just came back from Brazil with you guys.
Yep.
Showed me his medals, and I was hooked, right? You know, I was interested. The thing that kind of maybe pumped the brakes a little bit is there's this tall guy in the back. They had the kickboxing in the back, right? Jiu-jitsu up front. They had the Muay Thai portion in the back. Saw this tall guy, short shorts, long skinny legs, hitting the kick bag. Boom, boom. Like, oh man, I don't know if I want to do all that. Ends up as you, right? So I look back, I see Tom back there, boom, hitting this bag. I'm like, holy cow, that's what jiu-jitsu is, right? I'm not trying to get kicked by those legs. And talked to Mike, and he said, no, that guy back there, you know, he's getting ready to fight, you know? So that was my first intro to you, right? Didn't get a chance to talk to you very much, but because I just started my career up in Fresno, I was working a midnight shift, 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. Luis Gonzalez, he did the same thing. He works for CDC. He's working the midnight shift as well. So with my schedule, his schedule, it was real hard for me to make the classes. And you know Luis, so everybody talks real highly of Luis. Luis and yourself were purple belts back then. Luis is a stud, right?
Luis is awesome.
He's very, very good. Everybody, you know, had nothing but great things to say about Luis, and his jiu-jitsu was off the charts, especially back then.
Tremendous.
So I got to talking to Luis. He said, hey, you're a little guy, right? He said, I need a training partner. You need to learn jiu-jitsu. I said, yeah, you're right.
Luis was like that.
Yeah, he was real cool. So he said, you can't make the classes because of your schedule. I can't make the classes because of my schedule. Let's get together, let's start training. So Luis beat me up for years, and it was just personal training with Luis. Really, I couldn't have asked for something better, you know, just a solo training with Luis. We'd go down to Jibushi when it's closed. He'd show me some drills, we'd drill it. You know Luis, how hard he works, and we'd drill. He'd use me as his test dummy, getting ready for competitions, and that's kind of my intro to it, you know. And then he moved over to Tulare, and I followed him out there.
That's awesome. Yeah, Luis, man, Luis helped me out tremendous. Luis, he was a correctional officer, and he worked all night when I met him.
Yeah.
And Luis was like that with me too. He's like, hey, you want to drive me up to Ralph Gracie's school?
Yeah.
Because he was getting
way back. Yeah.
Yeah, he worked all night, and he was too tired to drive. So the deal was I had a ride to San Francisco to train with Ralph Gracie himself.
Yeah.
As long as I would drive this guy Luis up there, because I didn't know Luis that well. And so yeah, I would drive Luis all the time up there, and just get beat up, man, left and right. And Luis, me and him became pretty tight, man.
Yeah.
You know, we became tight. Well, what happened was Ralph Gracie brought Chinguina from Brazil.
Yeah.
Okay, because Ralph Gracie, what he would do is every once in a while he would bring he was trying to bring these black belts from Brazil, and so he brings Chinguina down, and Luis comes to Jibushi one day and he's like, hey, I met this dude Chinguina up there, and he's like, you know, the dude is super cool. And I'm like, man, I want to train with him. I want to go meet Chinguina, and this guy named Chinguina.
Yeah.
And so that's how I met Chinguina, was through Luis. But yeah, man, dude, those were the good old days, man. Like Luis Gonzalez, I love you to death, man. If it hadn't have been for Luis Gonzalez and Chinguina, because Chinguina had a big part in my jiu-jitsu career too. I really appreciate you, Chinguina, and Luis, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, that's the deal, man.
That's awesome, yeah.
So do you guys? Are you into competition here? Do you guys compete?
Yeah.
Well,
I do.
actually, I saw one of your guys fight and fight to win, right?
Did, yeah. Frank Ruiz, he's
Big old boy.
big boy back there in the back. He got his black belt from Chinguia, Luis Gonzalez, August, I believe, of this year, this summer.
Does Luis come out here and teach sometimes?
He comes out and trains. You know,
Yeah?
I still get with Luis and train with him. You
Nice.
know, I spend a lot of time down at Chinguia's training as well. You know, I have throughout the years, and then Luis and I get together as much as we can.
That's awesome, brother.
Yeah.
What do you have coming up, man, for jiu-jitsu? What are your plans? Because this school is really cool, man. I like you're out here on the side of town where there's no other jiu-jitsu schools, and it seems like you got a pretty good little following here. What's next for you? Are you planning on growing into a bigger spot or what?
Yeah, you know, we'll see what the future holds. You know, with my work schedule, it's a little bit hard for me to have more than the classes I have right now. PJ Soto, he helps me out tremendously. Comes in and steps in. He teaches for me on Thursday nights right now. My whole goal was when I was in the old box, you know, I needed a starter spot. You know, let's see if this thing's going to work. I went there and did really, really well, really fast, you know, which is awesome. It's an awesome problem to have, right? So I kind of outgrew it. And the whole time I was looking for a new facility. And to be perfectly honest with you, this building, I had my eyes on it for a long time.
Yeah.
And fate would have it, it came open as I was looking. So I jumped on the opportunity to move in here. When I came in, I talked to my wife. She's a big backing for me. You know, pushes me a lot in all the endeavors, but also.
Does your wife train as well?
No, she doesn't train. But
She backs it up though.
Yeah, she backs it up. She keeps
probably
me in
proud of
check.
you.
Yeah, she's pretty happy. You know, and I owe a big thanks to her. You know, she helped me out tremendously with everything behind the scenes. But when I found this place, you know, I had all these grandiose ideas. I would put change room over here. I'm gonna do this and do this.
Yeah.
And she said, "Hold on, time out. You
Yeah.
know, you're trying to open a jiu-jitsu school, right?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "What do you need for jiu-jitsu? Mats, right?" Yeah. She said, "All right, put mats everywhere, right?" You know. So
Where did you get these mats?
they're from Orange County, so they're layered. So I bought different layers from different places. Mainly, it all came from Orange County. So
I like it though. The instead of tatami mats with little spaces and lines in them, you have this is what I had in the box.
Yeah.
I think it works out really, really well.
I like it. It's much more hygienic. You know,
Yes.
with those other mats, the puzzle mats, they go together. You know, anything can fall in between. The cleaner at night, you know, there's no way to keep it clean. With this, I can literally take in a hose and spray it down, clean it all off, roll it up, clean underneath, replace everything, roll it back down. It's perfect. You know, there's no problems with it. And it's easy. You know, the company down south, you give them the dimensions, they cut it for you. It comes out like that. You just stretch it. It's Velcro around the edge. It's perfect. The other mats, the zebra mats, are actually pretty dangerous also. You know, I don't know.
Yep.
I'm sure you've had some experience with it. I broke my hand off of one before, just training, basing out. They put pressure, it popped my finger because it's stuck in between the two mats. So I just always told myself I'd
Fingernails,
never get it. Yeah.
Toenails.
Yeah, you know, I just figured I'd never get it, you know, and this is, luckily I found the company that did this and it worked out perfect.
That's awesome, brother. I really appreciate you letting us come in.
Yeah.
Can you give your schedule out so the people, you guys, I highly recommend this school. If you're here in Visalia, California, or around Tulare County, anywhere around, you should come out and check it out. Even if you train at a different school, you welcome anyone in, right?
Yeah. We have quite a few visitors from other schools.
Because I notice a lot of schools usually people kind of get a little hurt if their students go on training with somebody else or whatever. I think everybody should train together. In Japanese jiu-jitsu, there's a word called kokua, and kokua means to help one another. And that was the Japanese use that. That's a main term in jiu-jitsu. A lot of people in Brazilian jiu-jitsu don't know that. It's called kokua. You can look it up, and what it means is to help one another. And so I think we all need to be helping one another. And man, if all of us schools in Visalia would get together, we have one of the strongest areas with jiu-jitsu, man. We got elite team, we got Vitruvian, we got yourself, Resilience. We have Trifecta with Marion Renault. Okay, so we got a strong thing going here, and one day I'm going to open up another school. We'll get that going again. So I think the Central Valley, man, the Central Valley has grown tremendously with jiu-jitsu, with Fresno, Tulare, all these different areas. Luis got a school in Tulare. There's too many to name, but with the jiu-jitsu is really strong. So I recommend if you're training, whatever school you're training at, come and check Josh out, guys. Want to go ahead and give your schedule, bro?
Yeah, of course. So the kids class, Monday through Thursday, 5:45 to 6:45 p.m. Adult class, same days, Monday through Thursday, 6:45 to 8 p.m. Saturday morning, we have a competition class, 9 to 10. 10 to 11 is an open mat on Saturday. And then Sunday, we do a no-gi class from 9 to 10.
Awesome, man. me and Archie, we were at the Fight to Win, and we were watching you guys, and you had, what was your student's name that competed?
Frank Ruiz.
Frank Ruiz. And man, it's so cool to see people go out there. Fight to Win is an awesome show where you're on it's almost like a cage fight, because in normal jiu-jitsu tournaments there's a bunch of mats going, but Fight to Win, what's the guy's name, the promoter?
Seth Daniels.
Seth Daniels. Prop to Seth Daniels. Man, he's got a great thing going there, and yeah, I really like it. I like the respect that your guy had when he went out there and competed. It was pretty cool to see. You think I could get an interview with him?
Of course, yeah.
All right, awesome, man. Thank you so much,
thank you,
bro.
Tom. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Partner.